Yeah, atheism is logically well, atheism. So I would be attacking strong atheism here and not weak atheism. So strong atheism would be the claim that there is in fact no God. Um, I would say that I would start from the thing that the prime mover they would basically have to make an argument against the prime mover, and then they'd be making an argument against existence, and that's self-refuting. So I would say that atheism on its face value is self-refuting unless they take up the proposition that the prime mover, okay, is non-personal, and they can make arguments for that. Okay, the mechanistic argument I've heard for it being non-personal is because I've heard logical arguments for why it's personal, but the only one I've heard is just, well, let's just say that it could make itself choose when it wanted to existed via some other mechanism that wasn't personal, and then it did so. But they can never provide you the mechanism. So if you apply Occam's razor to that, then they're basically saying that it does the same thing as a mind via something they don't know. But since we already know that a mind can do it, if you apply Occam's razor to it, it stands that it's more reasonable to assume that it's a mind
Nah.
rather than something that can do the exact same thing but unknown in mechanism.
But how
Occam's
does the mind
razor,
work? What's the mechanism for a supernatural mind?
that's unimportant into
Well,
regards to what
that's
I'm talking.
exactly the same attack that you're doing to the person
No,
who's
what I'm
proposing a
saying is,
natural.
if you apply, listen, there's two propositions. One, when you look at the ontological analysis of the Kalam, one person will say, look, I know that the arguments for it being personal, and I know that there are logical arguments, but I'm going to make an argument that it's non-personal, and I'm just going to say, they usually say this, it's non-personal because it has the necessary and sufficient capability to make itself exist at a given time without being personal. But they never actually say what that is. They just give it all the properties of being personal and just say, but it's not personal. It's just necessary and sufficient to establish that. But this is what's interesting. If you have two propositions, one's personal and one is just necessary and sufficient to be what appears to be personal, then you apply Occam's razor. One, we have a mind, which can known to be doing these things. Then we have an unproposed, unknown mechanism. So if you apply Occam's razor to it, a mind can accomplish it. This thing does the same thing that a mind does, but they don't know the mechanism. Apply Occam's razor. The mind is the most logical thing to hold to. So what I'm saying is, if you use Occam's razor against the proposition, and that they say, well, it's not a mind, it's just something necessary and sufficient to have the same capabilities as a mind, then Occam's razor gets applied to it, and they've lost that argument. Because they don't have it, they don't know. They're just saying, well, it's like a mind, but it does the same things as a mind, but it's not a mind. Well, what is it? I don't know. Well, you don't. You're just
Well,
proposing something that has the same qualities of a mind, but it's not a mind. If I apply Occam's razor, the mind wins out because we know of a mind. So you've
and
lost.
okay, so
They
yeah,
lose.
I don't know what specific sort of the proposition you're talking about exactly. Like who proposes that there is
I
no
had this
natural.
conversation with Matt Bell a while ago, and I said that it doesn't have to be a mind. And I provided the example of the polytheistic idea of chaos, which is
Yes.
a primordial um, ooze of just creative force, basically. So the only thing that is necessarily needed for a prime mover is something with the property of the ability to create. It doesn't need to be a mind. There doesn't need to be any intelligence. It just needs to have that ability. And it can be a rubber ducky for all it matters. It needs to be able to do that.
Right. So it needs to be able to create itself. Even though it's eternal, it needs to be able to enact itself, right? So
No,
basically,
it
what I'm
doesn't need
saying,
to enact itself. It just needs to be the default. Like in relation with chaos, chaos doesn't create itself. Chaos is the default. It is the status of not being.
no, but I'm saying like in regards to the Kalam, they'll usually go, well, it's got to be timeless, immaterial, sufficiently powerful, and personal. And then when the personal arguments come up, the
Yeah,
personal
I reject the personal.
okay, so the personal argument comes up. The argument goes simply something like this: if it's eternal, okay, and it has all the necessary and sufficient qualities for creation, what logically implies is that it was always created. You have something that's eternal
Yes,
that
and that
has.
applies to chaos as well.
Okay, so but here's the thing: we know that at least from science that the most rational thing to be held provisionally is that the universe isn't eternal. There's more evidence to the contrary. So what we'd say is that since the universe isn't eternal, then that thing must have had to will itself, or not, you don't use the word will, but it must have had. There's some mechanism of which, if we know that it wasn't always created, but it did have the necessary and sufficient qualities for creation and was eternal, then there must be some mechanism to actually make it created now rather than always being created. So they use the analogy of a pond.
Yes.
If there was an eternal pond, and that pond had all the necessary and sufficient qualities to be frozen, then what logically follows is the pond is always frozen, right? So,
Well,
but
we're sort of agreeing with each other. It's just that, and I feel like you're not actually getting to.
no. Here's where I get to your argument.
Okay, cool.
This is what they'll say. They'll say, okay, so a mind could be the thing to actually, even though it's eternal and has all the necessary and sufficient properties, that's what brought it into existence rather than always existed. So then they'll say this, well, look, I'm going to propose not a mind, but what I'm proposing has all the same necessary and sufficient properties that mind has in order to enact something that's eternal to come into being in one instance. Okay, so what I'm offering you is I'm offering you we're offering the same mechanism. It has to create the universe at a certain time. I'm offering you through a known mechanism, a mind and will of something that we know, that we have examples of, and then you're saying, well, I'm offering, what you're offering is saying, not necessarily you, but with chaos, but a lot of counter examples follow like this. They say, well, look, it's not a mind, but it has all the necessary and sufficient things of a mind. I mean, well, what is it? Well, we don't know. It's not a mind, though. It's just got all the necessary and sufficient.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm fine with somebody saying we don't know because we don't.
I know, but then when we apply Occam's
example.
razor, Occam's razor shaves off your I don't know, and my proposition for the mind, which is known, survives Occam's razor rather than something necessary and sufficient, but isn't a mind, which we don't know.
Right, and I'm providing an idea that's thousands of years old. So it's something that could arguably be quote unquote known. It's an impersonal entity, but it does all the same things.
Yeah. So okay. So this is where I would try to apply Occam's razor. So what we do is it does all the same things. Okay, and then on one hand, so they both do the same thing, but in one hand, so let's wipe that off mathematically. But in one hand, we have something that the mechanism of which is known and is sufficient, i.e. a mind, and the other one is an unknown mechanism. Okay, but they both do the same thing.
How is a mind a mechanism, though? We don't know how the mind works.
I think a mind would be a mechanism in the same way that chaos would be a mechanism.
Yeah, but the chaos is just a mechanism, is a proposed mechanism of which we don't have any examples of. So what I'm saying, when you apply Occam's razor to that, even though it has the same explanatory power as mine, it has the same explanatory power as mine, except for mine is evidenced in reality as being, yours is just kind of conjecture. So if you apply Occam's razor,
you have to first of all prove then that our minds are in fact in such a matter, right? You're essentially
no. That's going off a completely different route, Art. And
it's dependent on that, right?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's contingent on mind-body dualism.
Well,
no, mind-body dualism doesn't figure into this at all.
I was gonna ask about that. I was wondering if you guys,
But okay, sure. Let's.
Because I was gonna go there, but I didn't want to because I wasn't sure exactly what the topic was. So
yeah,
it sounds like that's not the topic.
Hold on, mind-body dualism doesn't really figure into this. Unless you're just wanting to use it to say that a mind can exist without a body, then great. But the person who's making this argument is a substance dualist, so it's not inconsistent.
I know, that's why I was. I'm like, there has to be something else that you guys are talking about because it seemed like it was going to be inconsistent. That's why I didn't say anything.
Well, I think it's
talking about the ontological analysis.
I'm trying to get back to the conversation.
Okay, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Hold on a second.
So I'm gonna beat both of you
Seamus
with
was explaining it. Just go
this
ahead.
This is what
Seamus.
we're talking about. We're talking about the ontological analysis of the conclusion of the Klom. So if the conclusion of the Klom is granted, and we get down to the ontological analysis of timeless, immaterial, sufficiently powerful, and personal. What we're on to the ontological analysis of the agent of it being personal, okay? And so we're taking arguments from the theist side of why it's personal, and then we're taking arguments for the the pagan, and then for the non-theist side for non-personal agency. But what I'm showing is when we put the logic side by side and apply Occam's razor to them, mine holds through because there's a known example of a mind, and the other one is just something that's just as necessary and sufficient as a mind, but they don't know. So if you apply Occam's razor to it, why
Occam's
not
razor
just...
doesn't figure into it.
Yeah, no, if you apply Occam's
My
razor
solution
into
is simpler than the
if
mind.
a mind can cover it, why add something that's unproposed that isn't a
Because
mind that
you're
we
the
don't
one
know?
that's adding something. You're the one that's adding for personal when it doesn't need to be there.
So
It's not
God,
just personal. It's all powerful and all knowing. It's not,
God-
it's much more complicated than the chaos.
Yeah, it doesn't need all these extra attributes that you're applying to it. The only thing that it needs
I'm
to
not
do is
applying
actually
it to it.
function. Yes, you are. When you're saying it's a mind,
They're
you're
an ontological
Okay.
analysis.
That's
I'm not just arbitrarily
Sorry,
applying
you're
it.
gonna
These
take off
things
this razor.
logically follow from it.
if you're going to take Occam's razor, it's the one with the least assumptions. And mine makes less assumptions than yours does because it makes all the same assumptions except for the personal aspect, which is the extra assumption that you're making. Occam's razor is in my favor.
No, you have to, in order to make the personal argument, the personal is you have to make the personal argument in order to give there a mechanism of which something who's eternal and has necessary and sufficient qualities wasn't always created. So since we know that it wasn't always created, you're not introducing personal.
Chaos was not created. It is the status of negative.
I know that. So what I'm saying is you're introducing something. Well, then you really don't. If you're proposing it's eternal, you really don't have much in this argument at all, because this argument is predicated on non-eternality.
I do think that the argument
what I'm
sounds
saying
like
is
it's going to go
I have something
towards...
that does all the same things, is eternal as well, and doesn't have the personal aspect. It simply is an example that shows that a mind is not necessary.
No, but all you've done is given it the same. You've given all the necessary and
the same
sufficient.
proprities. These are properties that existed for thousands of years. These
I'm
are
not
properties
saying-
that arguably
listen.
that predate Christianity. I might add.
Listen, you're getting bogged down in the language here. I'm not saying you personally added these things to it or anything like this. What I'm saying is the proposition being put forth is that what chaos has all the necessary and sufficient things of a mind, but we haven't defined it as anything other than chaos, some unknown mechanism. It just can do the same things that a mind can do, in that it can
do
create.
anything that a mind can do.
No, you got to let me finish. It can do the same things as a mind can do, in that it can create a universe at a given time. See, what the problem...
It can do... Wait, hold on. You just said it can do all the things that a mind can do, in that it can do what is not necessary for a mind.
No, what I'm trying
to... I'm showing that the mind is not necessary by having something that doesn't have a mind doing the same thing, and you're saying that it has a mind in that it can do these... No, that doesn't make any sense.
You heard me. You misheard me. Listen. Let's say I take away the mind from it. Let's just say that, okay, no mind. It's just timeless, immaterial, and sufficiently powerful, right? Well, guess what happens from that? If we have something that's eternal and it has the necessary and sufficient qualities to be created, creation would always be created. That means creation would be eternal. Well, science actually provisionally tells us that most likely isn't true, that we need to hold to that non-provisionally as not being true. So if it is not eternal, okay, then now we have a problem. We need a mechanism now for something to actually withhold that and then choose to bring it forth into existence. Because if it was eternal and had all the necessary and sufficient qualities, universe would always exist.
You're arguing that God created himself. Is that
What?
it? Are you arguing that God created himself? That he's not eternal?
No,
Okay. Now I'm confused. Because it seems like
Yeah, Ocean, it sounds like you did get a bit... Yeah.
This is a
no,
very
I
simple...
am getting a little bit confused. I fully
Okay,
admit that.
let me break it
Yeah,
down.
totally.
It's super simple, okay? So I'm
It's
doing it
not
again.
super simple, man.
No,
But try to anyways.
Shameless.
Totally,
Hold on,
Seamus.
let Seamus explain it. I want to hear this man explain what the difference is.
okay, this may just take a few minutes, but I guarantee you I can get us on the same page here.
That's why I'm listening intently.
Okay, so like I said, let's strip away the personal agency, and let me show you why that screws me up. If I take away the personal agency, now I don't have a mechanism, and since I don't have the mechanism for the universe to bring forth itself, and now we have something that's eternal and has all the necessary and sufficient qualities, that means that the universe would always exist. But we know that the universe didn't always exist, so there must be a mechanism for something eternal with the necessary and sufficient qualities to not manifest them until a certain point. So I'm proffering the mechanism.
I see the problem. You're getting bogged down in the mechanism being, or the mind being the necessary component as the mechanism.
Yes.
Which is exactly what I'm arguing against. That
Yes.
I don't think that the mechanism has to be a mind.
Okay, but let me show
The
you
mechanism
this.
exists elsewhere other than the mind. The mind is what may control the mechanism in your what I think that the crux of your position would be that there has to be something that decides when the creation has to begin.
Yes, or it
Now,
would have
Jamie.
always been created.
Seamus,
What,
can I give a
hold
picture?
on, because damn it, I'm getting so close here. Now,
Okay.
if with chaos is randomly acting all of the time. Therefore, the point that in which the universe creates itself, so to speak, is a point that is possible to happen at every moment, which also feeds into a multiverse, which has several. This happens constantly with chaos. So that the bubbling foam of universes coming out, which is an idea that's been popped around in science recently, lines up with chaos.
Yeah, but all you're saying is, so I'm saying this. I'm proposing the mechanism of a mind, which could actually bring something. Like I choose to sit in this chair until I choose to get up, right? So that would be the same thing. God, he chose not to create the universe until he chose to create it, right? That was the mechanism for why he's eternal with all the necessary properties, yet it wasn't always created. So what you're saying is I'm going to offer the same thing from chaos, okay? But here's the problem. Okay, mine solves it, yours solves it, but what I'm saying is that yours has an unknown mechanism, right? It's just it's like an ad hoc unknown mechanism that facilitates.
It's not ad hoc if it's thousands of years old, dude.
Hey, Shamos, quick question here. How do you know that the will comes from the mind? What if it comes from the brain? Like the definition of what you're saying is the mind, and then maybe God would have to have a brain because we don't have examples of minds without brains. So it seems to me like you kind of have to define a little bit more what you mean by mind. And what
I could make a tertiary argument for substance dualism, which I'd be more than willing to do, but that would bring away from the argument. What I'm saying is, what we know is that personal agency and will is a mechanism of which could make something choose to enact at a given time. And if the universe chose to manifest itself at a given time, God has proposed to have a mind, then these things all seem to line up, and that seems to give me a pretty sound mechanism for why something that's eternal with the necessary and sufficient properties, what didn't always exist, because it chose not to.
So you're assuming that will is a product of the mind. What if will is a product of the brain and not the mind?
Well, I mean, like I said, I can make a tertiary argument for substance dualism, but I mean, you would have to, and after that, then you'd have to offer tertiary arguments for why you think it isn't. I mean, I can offer.
He's going where I would go, by the way.
Oh, that's fine.
But you guys had to pick to talk about something interesting when I'm in the middle of LA, super busy. So.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ocean, but sorry, I'll be quiet now.
I mean, I'm just going to be repeating myself at this point.
I know you don't agree with me, but what I'm saying is, since we have examples of the mind, known examples, in chaos right now we don't have any known examples. So when we have the same explanatory power, the exact same explanatory power, and mine's a known mechanism, we apply Occam's razor and I win.
We don't have you're talking about a known mechanism as a mind that exists outside of the universe. We don't have that.
Yeah, a mind is a known mechanism that can manifest itself at given points of time.
We also don't have a mind that is timeless.
A mind that's disembodied is not something that is a known mechanism. All the minds we know depend on a physical brain.
And I can make
you would have
an
to assume
argument
that the
for
universe. You would have to
right
assume
now.
that the universe creates the universe and then puts minds in it because you'd have to somehow justify that a mind can exist without the universe, because all the minds that we have right now
Well, you haven't
exist
even
with the
justified
universe.
that chaos can exist, so I never tried to stamp you on that. But if you want to, we can go down these roads, and I'll make an argument.
What I
I'll
said
make
is
it-
why
that
don't you guys
chaos would
you
be the
guys
state
stick-
of not being.
Okay,
Yeah, stick with chaos, and when I'm able to talk more, I'm down to talk about the mind-body dependency thing.
okay. So I'm going to make an argument right now for substance dualism. Okay. So
No,
and
no,
I'm gonna,
if it's okay, because
I'm a
I actually have to
substance
go. But
Oh, I don't
stick
care
with
if
Ocean.
we were having this
okay.
conversation before you ever showed up. So
Yeah, but I'm the one who matters
yeah. So
right
if you
now.
want, I'm just going to go ahead and make
Joe
an
is the
argument.
real solipsist.
I'm gonna make
Right? Okay.
I'll make a argument for substance dualism from like a Leibnizian argument for substance
We
dualism.
agree on substance dualism.
Okay. Well, obviously we don't, because I seem to be catching a lot of flack that I haven't established that mind and bodies could be different things, but you haven't established chaos either. So I'm going to go ahead and establish mind and body dualism, and then you can make any arguments for chaos that you want. Okay. So
I've already established everything that I can establish.
okay,
It's
so
just
that's why I'm saying it's unfair. It's unfair if you can't really establish it, and then you're asking me to establish it, and then I'm willing to give like logical arguments for substance dualism, and then
No,
you're
what
like,
you're
well,
saying, the thing that I'm taking issue with is when you're saying that yours is a known mechanism and mine is not, which is in a sense doing the same thing.
right, yours, yeah, the
That-
proposition
so
of a mind.
What you're accusing me of doing is what you have been doing to me for this entire conversation.
The proposition that a mind can will something and choose choose to do something, like I can sit in my chair completely still until I choose to get up. That's a known mechanism that would be the exact same thing. That's period. Now chaos, this is a proposed
Right,
mechanism.
in the universe.
Yeah, it's a proposed mechanism. We don't have any known examples of this. It may be. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that, look, it's right now, it's conjecture. We don't have any known examples, but we do have examples of a mind, and I can show you examples where a mind can manifest as something at a given point of time that it chooses. Now, when we put the two propositions side by side, and they have the same exact explanatory power, and I'm appealing to a known mechanism, and you're appealing to an unknown mechanism, we apply Occam's razor, and I win out.
No, we
that's
apply
where I
Occam's
see
razor
it.
and I win.
Okay.
Because I'm making less assumptions than you are. That's the bottom line. I'm making less assumptions than you are. You're talking about whether or not something is a known mechanism inside of our universe doesn't matter when we're talking about something that has no universe. So if somebody says that minds cannot exist without the universe, and then you can't really you can't establish that minds can exist without the universe. Therefore, saying that it's a known mechanism isn't a good argument, because you can't establish it.
No, I can establish
Therefore,
it with
it comes
a
down to
tertiary
who's
argument.
making less assumptions. And
No.
when it comes down to who's making less assumptions, I win.
No, we're making the same amount of assumptions. You're assuming the same
No, you're
mechanism.
making a personal assumption. You're doing
No.
the same thing as I am, except you're slapping a mind and a personal being on it.
No, we're making the same assumption. Just because I'm calling it personal, you're making the same assumption. You're assuming that something can make it happen at a certain point in time. That's the mechanism, and this is the mechanism. You can call it personal. You can call it blobby blobby blue doo. We're proposing the similar, exact same mechanism with the exact same fucking explanatory power. The only problem is mine is a known mechanism, and yours is a proposed mechanism. Apply Occam's razor, mine wins out. That's what I mean. I know you don't agree.
It just simply doesn't.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree politely today.
I don't see how you don't realize that you're making more assumptions than I am.
No, because we're actually explaining the exact same thing. So
No, we're explaining the same thing. We're
making the
we're
exact same
making
assumption.
less assumptions. Like one of us is making more assumptions than the other in order to explain the same thing.
I'm calling it personal. You're just not calling it anything. We're still making the same amount of
I'm
assumptions.
rejecting the personal outright.
You're still, yeah. You're saying it's not personal, but it does the same thing that you're suggesting a personal will do. So we're proposing the exact same amount of assumptions, except for mine is evidence and yours is not.
No, you're saying that there is something with a brain that is a creative force, and I'm saying there's a creative force.
Hold on, Seamus.
Right.
Just by calling it personal, you're adding an extra step, so it doesn't defeat
No, it doesn't matter what we call it. Call it blobby blobby blue blue and blobby blobby blue blob. You're opposing the same fucking thing. They both do the same thing. I'm calling mine personal.
calling it blobby bobby blue blue, and you're calling it bobby bobby blue blue with a brain.
They're the same thing. They're just via a different mechanism. You're not proposing one less thing than me. You're proposing the exact same amount of assumptions as me, and you're saying it just my assumption isn't personal. Your assumption is personal, but they explain the exact same thing. Okay, so we do have the exact same amount of assumptions. Mine is through a known mechanism. Yours is not.
Well, neither one of us have been there, so it doesn't fucking matter in the first place. But
and let me go ahead, because I think we should just politely agree to disagree and try to meander down the line of conversation, maybe to substance dualism. So,
like,
if you want,
I don't know. I win, and my penis is bigger.
Okay.
That's all. I think I'm fairly much. I think we both made our points to the point where we're just going to be repeating ourselves as to each other.
Yeah. That's why I'm willing to move on to like tertiary arguments for substance dualism. Like I like the Leibnizian argument for substance dualism that basically just says that if you can think of a possible world in which your mind exists and a body does not, okay, then it's possible that their arguments can be made that the mind and body are distinct. So, like in the informal part of the argument would be like if I dropped it to an informal argument, it would be like if I walked up into a mirror, right? And I woke up one morning, I looked in the mirror, but my body wasn't there. But I was still there, and I'm still thinking, I'm still perceiving. And I look down, my hands aren't there. Okay, I'm looking back, the shower curtain's behind me. Okay, and then I'm like, holy fuck, you know? I don't exist. My body doesn't exist, but my mind still does. Now, look, I thought of a possible world in which my mind can exist, in which my body doesn't. But here's the thing. If they're the exact same thing, I could never make an argument for my mind existing and my body not. Think about this. A chair. A chair is just one thing. It's of one substance. Can I make an argument for a chair without a chair? Fuck no. Why? Because it's one substance. Can I make an argument for a television without a television? Well, my television woke up one day and it was there, but it wasn't there, but it was still there. No, that doesn't work. That's called a contradiction. The reason why it's a contradiction is because the television is of one substance and it's one thing. But when we speak of mind and body, we don't just call it body and body. We call it body and mind. They're already separately ontologically distinct things and descriptors in our language, right? And because of that, the mind and body are automatically assumed to be different. I can make an argument for an immaterial mind without evoking a body, and it still be coherent and not espouse a logical contradiction. But if I make an argument for a chair existing and then not existing, ergo contradiction. A contradiction always arises, always. But a contradiction does not arise from saying a mind can exist outside of a body because they're not the same thing. And only if they were the same thing would a contradiction ergo. So since no contradiction ergoes, that shows you that the law of identity holds that if A must equal A, they must have all the same exact properties to be the same exact thing. And if I can show you they have distinct properties, then via the law of identity, A cannot equal A.
Seamus, you know that you destroyed a precept argument right now. You understand, right? Because you're saying, well, I can imagine a possible world where A is not connected to something else, or A does not necessitate the existence of X. Then, hey, I can imagine a world where reason is not predicated on God. Ergo, God is not a necessary precondition for reasoning. And Christian God doesn't.
That just means that reason and God are not the exact same thing, which I would.
Actually, no, not necessary. They're not.
This argument is an argument from identity, which means I'm just trying to show that these two things don't have all the same properties. Which means not that they're derived from one each other or nothing like that. It just means that they aren't each other. So if I can show you that the mind is not the body, then the mind does not equal the body. A doesn't equal A. They're not the same thing. They're different.
Well, the mind is not a body. Under materialism, the mind is not the exact same thing as the body anyway. So. Okay,
then you're a substance dualist. Great.
No.
Then you don't understand philosophy.
No, you don't. You're using very sloppy language because we had this discussion and you're equivocating on the terms, right? Because sometimes people will say that, yeah, it's the body, or the mind is the body, right, or whatever. But no, in a materialistic sort of naturalistic worldview, the mind is the brain, and the brain is a part of the body. The brain is not the body as a whole. The brain is just the organ. in this body, right? And what your argument at best shows is that the brain, i.e., the mind, is not the same thing as the whole body. Well, duh, we agree.
Seamus, what would happen if you substitute the personal mind with a purposive ID? Would that be a non-Christian God?
With what? Say that again, Balthasar?
With a purposive ID.
Oh, wow.
A
Proposed intelligent design?
A purposed thought or intelligence. You can also say. Because, I mean, you were discussing that mind needs a brain or something physical, but we know that, like, if you take, let's say, an ID, to build the idea of a plane, we know that this is not reducible to matter. I mean, there's nothing in chemistry that makes a plane.
So what?
Do you understand?
Could you repeat it?
If you have an ID, let's say, Art, you have the idea of a computer game, and there is nothing in your brain, nothing in the physical, that makes this game, you know, like a plane. There's nothing in chemistry that is the plane. It's an ID, so you cannot reduce it to the
reducible. But that's the thing. It is reducible to very simple physical entities. Like atoms,
no, not the ID. Listen. You cannot. Where in the chemistry do you find the how to say the drawing of a plane? You cannot reduce it to chemistry, so it's not physical.
Well, of course, you will not find a literal drawing of a plane in the chemicals. What you find is a computational system that allows for encoding of very simple mediums, you know, like atoms, molecules, and this encoding is sort of manifested itself in beings. That's how computers works. For example,
it manifests itself when the ID is brought into the material. I mean, when you build a plane, then it's manifested in the material, but you cannot reduce it the other way.
We have to be really precise with the language here. We have to really precise with the language here, and I don't think I could. I'm really sloppy on this, but I'm okay. So,
because you think you can reduce a thought to chemistry, I don't think so. Okay,
yes,
so I am not a materialist.
I think so. If you want to argue against this, then
yeah. But we have no way to show how you can reduce a thought to chemistry. So
yes, we do. Actually, we have analogies.
It's not chemistry; it's physics.
Okay, let that be now. Perhaps you cannot, but there is many also that are not religious or also atheists that can hold this view.
Good. They're welcome to be wrong.
Yeah, but at least you have an ID. It is manifested, can be manifested in matter when you build a plane, but it wasn't in. You cannot reduce it to matter. So you cannot point out what kind of matter did you have to have the idea of a mind.
Theoretically, we could. Theoretically, we could, but practically now we don't have the ability to.
Okay, so what kind of chemistry makes a plane? Or what kind of?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, practically we cannot do it, but theoretically we should be able to.
So we don't need physicality for a thought. And
no, that's the thing. The only way thoughts can exist is if physicality exists. That is the only way we know thoughts can exist.
Yeah, that's the only. Okay. It was just the idea because. If you then have a thought that is immaterial, that's why you operate with a mind. But personal, I also have the difficulties with.
Hey, can you guys do me a big favor and kick one of you guys kick this troll out, please?
Yeah, it looks like they're really chilling Seamus hard. It's what is it? Marry me.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the.
Of course,
their name.
of course, it's Sugar.
Oh, wait.
Sugar, you know I don't like people using my real name on here.
I miss you. Yeah, I don't like people calling me a cunt either. So.
You two
yeah.
are my favorite YouTube couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you? You sound really good. You were totally owning Ocean there. Totally owning him.
Look.
So exciting.
Yeah, you're just acting like a little girl or something. Just take off.
I'm going to go ahead and say that using people's real names when they've requested not to isn't cool.
I've asked that multiple times, and Rev calls me by my real name all the time. Dragnot, he's already looked up one of my ex places that I used to work, and he already said it on a live hangout. Now, people are starting to get a lot more information on me, and Sugar, will you come back on another name, please? Please, don't.
Yeah, guys, real names, that's the kind of doxing. And,
please, so please take off with that. Thank you.
Hey, I was wondering, like, I use my real name. Is there something? I mean, you guys know of anybody who, like, I don't know. Is that not a good idea to use my real name? I mean,
we actually discussed this issue not too long ago, and I don't particularly want people to know that much information about me either.
Yeah, it's that people can find you and use your real name to pretend they are you, and find your closer information, because if they know your name, they can find out something more. And it gets you at a greater risk of being trolled and potentially even your life being made very hard.
Well, maybe I'll make a different one. The only reason I do it though, like, it prevents me. It kind of prevents me from being trollish, and I notice myself, at least, I'm less apt to just say some wacky shit or be mean when I'm using my real name. I don't know. It's I did it kind of for myself.
Because now you have to protect your identity.
Right.
You have to protect your credibility, right? Your name is at stake.
Coming in here, I might.
People gonna attempt identity theft against me? And I'm using my real name, or what are they gonna do? I haven't had that many people show up on my doorstep unless I asked them to. Go ahead.
Well, you had people troll you on the phone, I know.
Well, when I come in with a fake name, I don't want you guys all using
seriously,
my real name.
Not my name. Go ahead.
If it's not your actual name, right, and if you don't have anything important associated with it.
No, my phone number is different from the name.
Okay. But people can find your phone number if they know your real name. For example, if you're doing business and
I have an idea of how they might have got my phone number. They didn't get it from. They did not get it from just my actual.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is how they got from you, but if you have a business or anything, or if you're doing advertising, or if you advertised to sell something like second-hand stuff that you don't need, and you put your real name somewhere there, anybody can just type in your real name and Google it, and they will find the old ads, and they will find your phone number there, which is good. I still have, well, never mind. So yeah, real name, not a good idea.
Hey guys, I don't know if anyone else is interested in this, but personally, I'm sort of interested in Ocean and Shamos, what they had going on, because it got really close to a conclusion, but they just disagreed on like one point. So if they could, you know what I mean? Like, it seems to me like they got really close to something, but they just disagreed on one point, which is why I'm interested in it, because it seems like that their conversation really could have took off if they would have just cleared up that one thing.
No, they were both wrong.
No, that was
the one thing we disagreed on was pretty much the irreconcilable difference between our religions.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty much the what do they call that? Where what is that called? Where like it's like an impasse. Like that wasn't just like something that could have been talked around. Like that was an actual impasse that there was no talking around that, and that's where. So that's why.
I don't think the rest of the conversation would have depended on the conclusion of that conversation, because then once we come to a conclusion on that, it then goes into the worldview that the other one holds, which are completely different ideas. Because we just have completely different worldviews.
Yeah, of that crux, of that impasse, everything hangs on. So if he assents to it, then he basically grants my worldview, and if I assent to it, I basically grant his, because everything almost logically implies from that point on. So we stop ourselves right at the impasse, argue for the impasse, knowing that everything rides on that, and then realizing that we're not making anywhere. We just say fuck it. It's impasse.
Granted, you could submit that mine is possible, and maybe even simpler, without assenting that it's true.
No, I think it's possible. Now, see, I would grant you that it's possible, but I don't think it's simpler. I don't think the criticism that Occam's razor applies to it. But I would never say that that's not possible. Now, it's certainly possible, but there are a host of things that are possible. I mean, we could come up with a host of just concocted things that are possible that will never be. So, I mean, I'm okay with granting you possibility, because possibility isn't probability. It isn't existence. So.
Well, unless you guys want to get in back to the conversation that you had, Ocean and Seamus, we can get back to what Seamus was telling us about the secondary argument for mind-body dualism, because I felt that wasn't addressed properly.
I quit halfway, so I maybe I shouldn't mention anything about it. But at the same time, I know that the argument that I find persuasive, or the dependency of the mind on the physical brain, was suggested to me by Cliff as being in the same format that a creationist will talk about information and or complexity. And because I like the argument so much, I just can't understand where Cliff is coming from. So I've been waiting to actually just say it with him in the room, but I think he actually said he just left, which is confirming my conspiracy that you guys only talk about interesting and like a quality topics when I'm not in here. As soon as I come back,
to us.
I've been purposely limiting my time in these rooms. Like, I've been watching a lot more than I've actually been joining. Like, I mean, for like the last 3 days, there's a lot of conversations that, like, I'm not just gonna join rooms anymore. Like, I'm only gonna join rooms if they're like interesting conversations and stuff. Like, I'm not just gonna join them to kill time and shoot the shit or anything like that. So I've been trying to like pick and choose my conversations and stuff, and not like just sit in here and fart around all day.
yeah, sitting here playing grab ass. Yeah, I mean, if I'm not gonna add to the conversation, then I usually try and leave, because Nadia is just she's the hot girl in high school. Everyone wants to be in the room right now, and so like if someone else can come in and add more information to, I don't know, what was the topic last night? Something about anal sex, then I should make space for that person to come in and, give their position on anal sex, or describe the positions they like performing anal sex in. See, I'm not very eloquent on the topic, so that's why I would leave.
Absolutely. The more anal sex, the better.
But we're not going to talk about that right now, goddammit. Cliff, are you back yet?
Yep, I was just listening to you say you need to make space for anal sex, which is an awesome intro.
You always need to make space for anal sex. I think that was... I think that's actually in the Bible, isn't it? That's we can discuss. We can get into historic biblical criticism later. Anyways, yeah. So I'll tell you the argument, Cliff, and you tell me why it's wrong. I'll tell you the argument that I formulated, because I think I do formulate it Motherfucker, Shamos. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is the argument that if theism were true, then one of the expectations that we would expect to see fulfilled in the world is that the human consciousness, or the mind for simplicity's sake, would survive the destruction or death of the physical brain. The issue is that all of science has confirmed that either the mind is the brain, which is the position of physicalism, or that the mind is dependent on the physical brain. If you affect the physical, it's going to affect the mental. There's been like years and years of scientific research demonstrating this. We can probe certain parts of your brain, and we know that those correspond with certain parts of your mind. And all of the evidence that we've seen shows that once the brain dies, the mind dies. And so this stands as strong evidence against the existence of a disembodied mind, which is what classical theism would, theism would define as what God is. He's a personal disembodied mind, among other things. And so the fact that there's no evidence that the mind can survive beyond the physical brain, then that stands as evidence against there being at least one physical mind existing out there, and that physical mind would be God. Or not, I'm sorry, that immaterial mind, would be God.
The issue that I have with that argument is very subtle phrasing. So you start off, if theism is true, then you would expect that consciousness to survive the death of the body. I would agree with that. The problem I would have is when you make the further step to say that we should observe it. That's the part that I would take an issue with. Do we expect that we should observe everything that's true about existence?
Now I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying now. It's definitely a phrasing thing, because the argument could still work if I didn't say that. I should say that so far the evidence, I see your issue is like one of the expectations that should be fulfilled is that
we should observe it.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying now. I mean, okay, and the issue is that I'm saying so far the empirical evidence doesn't show that this is possible, but you're saying that that's not kosher.
If I was to attack that argument, I'd attack it on the grounds that we are not expected to observe everything that's true about reality. It isn't reasonable to expect us to observe everything that's true about reality. That's the way I would attack that argument.
Well, the issue with that is that, I mean,
I would say evidence doesn't show that it's false. It just so far hasn't shown that it's true.
Yes.
It's but like it's the issue that maybe, I mean, since you two are very smart people, I'm totally down with being wrong. But immediately what comes to my mind is that my non-disembodied mind, my bodied mind, my hot body mind, what I
Your
think
hot body
is,
mind.
Yeah. What I think is, since it is, I mean, that clearly is like a key part of the definition of God, is that he's a disembodied mind.
I would think that most gods would be disembodied minds.
Well, I mean,
so yeah.
I disagree, actually. I thought that there definitely are gods out there that are like considered, that were once thought to be physical deities hanging out in the sky. It's just that they're not tenable now. I mean, we can actually go, hey, is Zeus in that cloud or something? But,
well, Jesus was not a disembodied mind, right?
Exactly, that too.
Right.
But I mean, now.
Except after he died, he would then become a disembodied mind.
Well,
Yeah.
after he died, him and the Holy Spirit and the Father joined rings, and they became one. I think that's how it goes.
Is that an Ultraman Ace reference?
Is that a what?
An Ultraman Ace reference?
I was thinking of Captain Planet, but there are several different.
I was thinking Wonder Twins, man.
No,
Yeah.
Ultraman Ace has got two people with different rings, and they bump rings together in kind of a fist bump, and then they become one hero.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a superhero that fights monsters, and it's like 50 meters tall.
yeah, all the Captain America kids, not Captain Planet, excuse me. All the Captain Planet kids, they put their rings together, and they. You know what? It's been a while. Did they
But they create Captain Planet. They don't
create him. Okay.
Yeah, they don't disappear. They're still
That
there.
would be
They
weird.
summon him.
Captain Planet. They summon Captain Planet.
Hold on. Question about this brain thing before you guys get into the comic books. Does the brain
Captain Planet is a TV show.
Right. Does your brain make you speak, or do you make your brain make you speak? Like when you're talking about.
I am my brain.
Well, which way is it? Are you telling your brain to tell your body to speak, or does your brain tell you to speak? Like, what are you? I don't understand what you're saying right now.
I am. It's kind of like it's okay. Well, like just quick finish. Could I just quickly hold on. Listen, it's kind of like the Euthyphro's dilemma, right? Does God say something that is good just because He says it? No, I'm sorry. Is something good just because God says it, or is it good because of something else?
You know,
Right. Well, no. The solution is because good is God's nature.
Say that.
What?
Well,
Sorry?
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
He's
Go
trying
ahead.
to separate the mind. He's separating the mind from the brain. I'm saying.
I'm not actually.
Wait.
Well, I'm sorry, not you.
No, he's not. He's saying I am my brain. But Art, do you have a brain?
Yes.
Well, then you're not your brain, are you? Because you have one.
Right. You're talking to me as a human being. A human being has a body.
Yes.
Right.
But you just
A
stated
body
that you
includes
were
a
in
brain.
possession of the brain, which means that you are not actually the brain. You're in possession of it.
It's kind of a cheeky way using
I know, it's so cheeky, isn't it?
linguistic. Yeah, you got it.
So yeah, what is Joe
Yeah,
saying?
but hold on a second. You could also say that even if you have your own brain and you, let's say, like a liver transplant, would your brain change because you had a liver transplant? Because you're going to metabolize things differently, and that's going to change the nuances in your ability to think. I mean, even very subtle changes in your diet change how you think. So I would think that if you change any body part, it's going to change how you think about the world.
That's why we have the concept of a soul. So the soul is not changing, but if the organ is damaged, the soul is restricted to express itself, of course.
Well,
that's Joe.
Go ahead.
Because Joe was the one that was bringing it up, so I just want to get the answer from him. Do you control your brain, or does your Joe? And I got to go on my way.
I control my. You keep a. No, I heard you before, and it's. I mean, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Then the separation that you're talking about, I'm not sure that it is scientifically proven. Then I mean, I understand that an affected brain affects the.
No, there's a correspondence. It's not necessarily like a complete separation. I mean, there's a correspondence. There's two different things that the argument that I'm espousing can support, which is physicalism, which I think you're definitely against. But it also supports. I keep on wanting to say substance dualism, but that's not it. It's something else. Let me find the exact term for you.
Substance dualism is just a lot of fun to say.
Yeah.
I'm listening from the outside.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
It makes you sound really brainy when you say it. Substance dualism.
But hey, I have a variation question that Jim just asked. So does the
really
software
quick, James,
control the hardware?
Just really quick, James, your question is important, and it's definitely causing me issues. So I want to. Oh, he's gone.
Yes,
I wanted to
listening on the
validate what he
outside.
said. Oh, okay.
He's listening on the outside. But
So
if my
listening on the outside, if you know what I mean.
Sort of my variation, maybe reductive, so to speak, it would be to say, well, or rather ask, so does the software control the hardware, or does the hardware control the software in the computer?
The hardware put restrictions on the software.
Why is there a duality? I don't even understand the purpose of this duality. I just think the brain
Well, there
is the
isn't.
brain. That's it.
Yeah, there isn't. Not even the software hardware dualities are actually proper duality. It's all physical. Just the one manifests in a different way.
Yeah, so like Freud was a big proponent of the mind versus the body, where even he said that as soon as more information came in, more evidence would show that all this resulted into physical forces. So I don't understand the duality. I think this just is kind of I don't see the point of it.
Well, Christians have to have the duality, right?
Christians what, sorry?
Christians have to have a duality.
I think so, yeah, pretty much. Well,
Yeah.
depends on. Well, I know there's some kooky like Christian denominations that maybe deny it. It's possible theoretically.
Interactionist dualist. That's what I would say to James 5 minutes ago.
I mean, it is possible to view the whole Bible as allegory and completely reject the supernatural. Which way is it?
Go ahead, Nadia.
Man, the audio is funky.
Okay, Nadia, your
Nadia,
audio.
you do need Transformer. You sound like Optimus Prime.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where was James going with his question anyway?
Probably to propose a problem for materialist.
Yeah. No, he actually did propose the problem.
Well, yeah, it's not actually a problem though.
Well, it's not but it was a problem because I couldn't, I couldn't remember what it was, and then I'm like, ooh, substance dualism. That sounds sexy, and so.
Oh, you don't recall his question? I can repeat it if you want.
I don't want to say it incorrectly, but if you think you can say it correctly, go ahead.
It's simple. So, are you controlling your brain? So, wait. Well, yeah. So it's something
right.
Right. It's something on the lines of, are you controlling your brain, or is your brain controlling you?
Yeah, and your answer was they're the same thing.
Yes.
Well, that's Art's answer. That's physicalism, is it not?
Yes.
But that's kind of like what came first, the egg or the chicken, right? I mean, that's
not necessarily, because I think I could say the brain, because it's the brain. It's what happens in the brain, physical brain, like the electrochemical shit that happens in your brain is what manifests what happens in our mind. So I think I would have to. I mean, especially if I want to. Now that I know that, I would prefer to say that I'm a interactionist dualist. I think that I would say that it's the brain first.
I think the example that Art brought about hardware and software was good because I think it's obvious that the hardware restricts the software, so you can
definitely.
So in that, and you can see that also how if you have some kind of brain damage and you see a kind of personality change and so on is
Phineas Gage and stuff.
But I mean, software
the software cannot run properly,
Well, I don't see how you don't see how that can. Well, saying a lot of seeds there. I do not understand how you don't think that actually stands as evidence against the likeliness of a soul existing, because the soul would be our mind, essentially surviving the destruction of our physical brain, would it not?
I mean, yes, it will go somewhere else, or get a new body.
But you just like agreed that that's the software that's dependent on the hardware.
It's like
hardware is messed up.
It's like the piano and a pianist. example. You have a pianist that is playing the music, and if the piano is broke, the pianist can be a very good pianist, but he cannot play better than the piano, although
I don't
he
know.
actually can. Hmm?
But I could just, I mean, I think Cliff will know what I say because I played the debate for him. But I could say, hey, I'm probably as brilliant as Mozart. It's just that all my hardware sucks right now. I
Yeah,
just
it could be.
happen to not know
Yeah,
how to play. I
that
mean,
that could yeah that could be the fact. Perhaps you haven't refined your hardware.
right now
Done
I have an
with
argument
your
that would
hardware.
totally turn you into an atheist right now. It's just my hardware sucks.
No, no, it's. I mean, if you work with your hardware, perhaps you can express more than you know. I
It's
mean,
just
that's
shitty
not a strange
logic.
idea. Hmm?
I need to put it into. Who's that one super attractive British dude who used to come into our room? Jacob.
DPR
I
Joe.
should take
I was
my
gonna say
software and put it into Jacob. And yeah, because Jacob doesn't have a ring, so we can't connect rings in order to
Joe,
form into one.
how
What's up?
hard is your hardware right now?
Pretty hard for Jacob, apparently.
Oh, Ocean. No, I was like, who's this dreamy motherfucker? And it's like, I don't even know what he was saying. Like, oh, did you ever do that
He was
debate with him,
hotter than
Ocean?
hell.
Yeah, he's an attractive motherfucker. Ocean, did you ever do that debate with him? You were going to be like the computer in the room or something.
Debate
Like,
with who?
okay, this guy Jacob, he had a debate club at his college, and they
Oh,
were
right.
going to
No,
debate.
he never. We didn't hook up. So
You missed your chance with the dreamboat, man.
I know, man. It's
Right.
kind of like mildly aroused by his presence. And by his presence, I mean his penis.
I mean, no, never.
Using the word penis on air is kind of fun.
I like saying peen.
Peen?
Yeah, for some reason that cracks me.
It cracks you up? Okay, well that's cool.
It's quite
You have a good time
silly.
cracking up. Cliff cracks up at fucking everything, I swear.
Cliff is like my
Even
biggest
that.
fan.
Like I just like flat out just like Cliff, you're easy to make laugh, and then Cliff goes,
he just likes.
It's fun making it. We have similar sense of humor, I think.
He has he loves anything that's just unnecessarily lowbrow.
It's true though.
Or stupid, just like really, really blatantly stupid.
Like I've noticed that Cliff laughs when I'm especially mean.
That's true. The other night with Saul, someone's like, "Hey, I have a question." You're like, "Hold on one second, I'm stumping Saul right now," and like no one got it.
I was
You
kind
were
of
just
sad that
so
nobody got that. It's like
I
I said that, and the room was like fucking silent, and I was like, "Well, that didn't fly." And then I get messages from Joe going, "I'm dying."
Yeah. If Cliff were in there, or I don't know if he was in the room, but he would have been having a Chucky Chuck. All right, guys. Again, my computer's about to die. I'll talk to all y'all later.
Finally. Okay.
Yeah, right.
See ya. Yeah, Ocean Hype. You kind of cut me off. Well, I should have thought about my response when you asked me about the, if I have a brain, kind of thing.
No, it's a pretty sweet argument, though.
It was unnecessarily pedantic.
But I hope you know it was based on linguistics, you bastard. Cheeky son of a bitch.
Yeah, I was just like, I know he's gonna do this, so I did it. Doesn't help that you're English is a second language for you, so.
Yeah.
I knew I'd nab you.
Well played, sir. Well
I'm
played.
totally picking on you for your lack of familiarity with English.
That's fine. That's fine. I pick on your mom all the time.
Aww. Poor sport.
I wish Seamus was here. Damn it, he would be he'd be trying to prove this shit.
What's he here, but he not here? What's going on?
He's AFK.
He's AFK, yeah. I went AFK and then I was back in a timely fucking manner. Now Roaston's AFK. This whole room is gonna fucking drop. I swear. Floyd's here. Not here.
Hey, Floyd.
Floyd must be AFK.
Hey guys.
You can see him being all AFK and shit. Everybody knows what camera thing I'm using now. Look at that. Actually, I suggest this program. It's a good program.
Manicam?
No, it's Sparko Cam. I'm using it to hook up a DSLR to my computer.
Oh. Well, hey, Floyd, we were having a discussion beforehand about what is it? The origin of the universe. I think it was Seamus was doing his shtick with whole Kalam. More importantly, the analysis of the cause, and he argued that it has to be a mind. Ocean here was proposing chaos, which is a refreshing way to counter that, I think.
Yeah, what does it mean, a mind? And yeah, is there really a beginning of the universe? Something could have always existed and just changed states over time.
Right.
I think that's plausible as well, but the argument I was presenting was basically that I can give you all the properties that you're giving except take away mind, and I have chaos, which has been the Hellenist idea for the beginning of the universe for a while. So
yeah, well, that's actually in the Bible as well as other creation myths. In Genesis 1, you have the gods dissecting Taom, the deep, which is the same root word for Tiamat, which is the chaos dragon, to form the heavens and the earth. You know, if you ask yourself in Genesis 1, when do the gods create the waters? And the answer is they don't. The waters are always there. That's the primordial waters that always existed in chaos, and then the gods separate the deep, Taom, and to create order in the heavens and the earth.
I like that. I could go with that. Also, dinner's ready for somebody. I don't know. I heard somebody.
That's me. So.
That's you. Hey, dinner's ready, Floyd.
All right, I'll be back.
I'll see you around. Thanks for that, though. That was a good explanation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Seamus's argument hinges on the fact that it's not past eternal, and in order to get around it being not past eternal and being finite, there has to be intention, therefore personal. William Lane Craig runs the same argument, right?
Somebody reveal Rustin or toss me mods. One or the other, or both. I don't care. Rustin's a good kid.
Oh shit, Floyd took off. I was going to ask him how he thought J.D. Kane did against the interaction with Matt Slick, because I know he hangs out with J.D. a fair amount.
But J.D. was talking to Matt Slick again?
Yeah, they had a debate yesterday.
How about what?
About if atheism is true, then they talked about morality, and then they talked about gays under atheism and Christianity. It's on Positively Godless's channel.
Oh, Positive Godless is good, dude.
I want to take a whack at not J.D. Kane, but Matt Slick at some point. I think that
you should.
I think a different animal for him to.
It would collapse immediately. Matt Slick rage quit like within 7 minutes.
What?
Oh yeah, like you got to be massively polite. Like, you know the way Nephilim is, where you ask him a question and he rants for like 10 minutes. If you interrupt Matt Slick any time at all, and you do it a couple of times, he'll rage quit. So you have to have a very moderated, very tightly controlled. Like I can't see you having a discussion with him. Like I can see it like he rage.
Like I'm too much of a dick for him, probably.
Well, like I said, you have to you'll ask him something, and you have to allow him it can be more than 5 minutes of a very long speech. And if you interrupt him any time at all because he's going somewhere that you don't like, or he's misrepresented what you said, or he's not answering the right question, and you try to say, well, that's not exactly what I was saying, and you do that more than a couple of times, he'll rage quit. So it needs. That's what happened with the J.D. Kane thing, and it's like really sad. And then once he came back, they tried to discuss it, but then they just started shouting over each other, and it just got. It was entertaining, kind of, but no real discussion. You'd need to have a very moderated debate where, like, someone said, "Okay, like you go, you go."
Yeah. And
Wait,
I can do that.
They didn't have a
also-
moderator?
Yeah, they were moderating it, but the basically moderator stood back and just let two of them go, and like Matt
it
rage
Nazi?
quit, and then they tried to get him back, and then when he got back, they just started like arguing with each other, and it never went anywhere.
Yeah, Ocean, I think you should talk to Matt Slick, that's for sure.
Like if you go into Bible Thumping Wingnuts channel, right? He won't rage quit there, but like they'll actually shut you down, right? They'll mute you or whatever to stop you from interrupting him.
And they will interrupt on their own.
Yeah, and they'll kick you too, right? If you interrupt them a couple of times. So the interaction you had with Seamus, like that wouldn't have. If Seamus was Matt Slick and that thing, you would have been kicked like right away.
Well, you know, Seamus I've had conversations with for years, so we go back and forth. But yeah, I can understand that would be the sentiment.
But I'd like to see the interaction.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to kick Ocean, and they just don't give me mods anymore.
Like Joe tried to talk to Matt Slick in Brett Keene's room, and like, it was really sad, like trying to watch it because he just couldn't get any kind of interaction because he'd ask a question, Matt would talk for a long period of time, and Joe would try to say, well, that's not really what I was asking, and it comes off very preachy.
Yeah. I don't know. I might, if I were to have a conversation with Matt, it would have to be under the context that it's a cage match. And then we're not actually going to talk. We're just going to, do some bare knuckle brawling. I think that would be really the best way to have a conversation.
You could talk to him. It's just you. There's little buttons. If you push him, he will.
Right.
He'll get upset.
That's fair. Oh, so you said in the side chat Aaron Raw is terrible, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I've talked to Aaron Raw about. Like I don't know a lot. I know about Bible stuff, and so I've tried to talk to him about that, and he is so anti-Bible, so anti-God, that he's not even willing to listen to like a reasonable or rational description of what the Bible's talking about. Even like if you're not making fun of the Bible,
You're an atheist or what?
me, yeah,
You're what?
I'm atheist, yeah.
Okay, and you're an atheist, and you're defending the Bible, Aaron Raw.
Well, I don't defend it. I defend scholarship. I defend.
Well, yeah, and I do much the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Christian, but.
Well, Aaron Ra kind of has that DPR almost sentiment where the Bible's fucking bullshit and don't bring it up in a conversation, whether it's about your worldview, theology, anything. It's it's almost as if trying to rant for reference.
In the words of DPR,
Snow
he doesn't
White.
give one jot.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think Aaron Ra almost personifies that even a lot more. But I mean, like, he wasn't completely dead to it. Like, we did talk about a couple of different scriptures, but I don't know. We mainly were talking about theories of truth and kind of like epistemology, and like Aaron Ra was trying to propose a definition for truth that truth wasn't what is.
Oh,
in
I remember
reality.
this.
Truth is only what we can prove. And I was like, I just told him how that's just a jacked up definition of truth, and that's going to just destroy, not like the definition of knowledge based on that. So and we kind of went head to head over that.
In other words, if you hold to that, then gravity works, but the universe doesn't exist.
Yeah, but he was like, he would bounce back. He wasn't completely being super consistent because he was saying that he was a correspondence theorist, that truth is what corresponds to reality regardless if we can prove it or not. But then he would always add the caveat that, yeah, that's true, but what point does it really, or he would say, like, what does it really matter if we can't prove it? So what if it's true? I'm like, what? You know, it doesn't. You know, I mean that kind of really subverts everything. Like
He's basically the loudest version of those atheists.
yeah, he wanted to change what is true to only what we could prove to be true, and then that just bastardizes the definition of truth. And I was like, really like, no, please don't do this. And he was like, no, we need to. It's only what we can prove. And I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, Aaron Ra is the embodiment of an angry atheist. Also, he looks like a Klingon.
He does kind of look like a Klingon.
Which I like, because I love
it's kind of
Klingon.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, he basically argues for verificationism. Last couple of times, but it's a long time since I've seen him say anything. But that's what it is, right? Truth is that which can be demonstrated or verified.
Right.
And like he's almost to the site. He's almost so far as you can say he's bordering on scientism, because that's what he means by demonstrated, right? He has a very strict version of demonstrated.
Well, I have an addendum to what DPR's position on the Bible is. I think that DPR's position on the Bible is it doesn't convince him one jot, and he's terribly sorry about it.
Yeah. But I think Aaron Ra also redefines reality too, right? He just says reality is that which we experience. Like
Whoa.
it's not what is.
Whoa.
Kind of solipsistic almost.
Can't do that. Oh, jeez. None of you are going to be a naturalist anyway. That's.
Yeah, I mean, how does he know that the scientists, like he hasn't experienced experiments that the scientists did, right?
I think to his credit,
Let me tell you about a couple things your mom experienced last night.
To Aaron Ra's credit, though, and I mean, I kind of figured this out, not from viewing any videos of him. The only video I ever watched of him was, I guess his exchange with like Sci-10, and then he had one other weird exchange with somebody else. But and I think that he did pretty well against Sci-10, and he was just a retard. But I think to his credit, Aaron Ra's not like big into philosophy and epistemology and fucking truth theory. He's really into like nuanced. He's really into anti-Christian theism in a nuanced way. Like he knows a lot of specific arguments from historicity, from he likes to focus in the Old Testament, and he brings a lot of really nuanced arguments, anti-Christian arguments. But like, so he's more. He's got his game plan. He knows his stuff in little areas, like he knows a little bit of historical things he can pry open and stuff like that. But when you get him outside of the things that, like, whether it's like evolution or whether it's like Old Testament or whether it's these type of historical things, you get him outside of that realm more into philosophy and stuff. He gets it's not his best suit. But I think that when it comes to things that he does know, like whatever arguments against the Old Testament, historical arguments, and whatever evolutionary stuff that he knows probably pretty damn well. So I mean, it's not in his favor just because he doesn't know everything in the world. I mean, he knows his shit on the things that he does know, and I think that applies to pretty much everyone.
Who's that?
Aaron Ra.
Aaron Ra. So like, I know my shit in a certain few tiny little areas, but you get me outside of that, and I'm a moron. I mean, it's not a knock against me.